Hello there, my name is Sai, and today we are here to talk about One Piece Chapter 1113. If you're wondering why I sound so robotic in this intro, it's because this is my second time recording this video, so I've lost interest. JK, no, I'll get into the group. I just got some coffee. I'm gonna wake the hell up here in a second. So, we have a lot to talk about today. We have a color spread, we have Vegapunk's message, we have the Gorosei matchups, and we also have reactions around the world, which is actually my favorite part about the chapter, believe it or not. At the end of every single arc in One Piece, I always look forward to seeing a bunch of old bozos coming back into the story and doing one of these. I love it. I eat that up. And guess what? When we came into Egghead, we did not get that. We didn't see people reacting to Luffy's bounty poster. Well, we got Shanks, but Shanks doesn't count, right? I want Nojiko. I want the people from Fuchsia Village. Give me Kaya, you know what I mean? I want to see everybody from a long time ago, bring back the nostalgia, and that is what this chapter did. We got to see a lot of people like that. And just to tackle this chapter chronologically, though, before we get there, we are going to start with the color spread. And this week's color spread is actually pretty cool. I played chess myself, if you can't tell by my skin color, so I just really enjoyed it, and I do think the Straw Hats posing as chess pieces and Robin as the chess player fits really well. Also, I don't know how many of you guys actually keep up with One Piece spoilers, but when the images leaked online, the official chess.com Twitter page actually retweeted the spoilers, which I thought was pretty funny. It always brings a smile to my face to see other people outside of the immediate One Piece fandom talk about One Piece like that. So now, though, it's time to look into this color spread, and one of the first few things that stands out to me are Zoro and Sanji. Not because the image has any deep meaning behind them, but it does remind me that next week, when the next volume of Shonen Jump comes out, we will be getting a Zoro and Sanji mini data page along with the chapter, which will definitely be a fun read. And not to mention, this is big news actually. So besides that part, Zoro himself is actually getting his own spin-off light novel. To give you guys some context as to how this is going to go down, it's very reminiscent of the Ace light novels where we had, I think, 3 to 5 volumes all about Ace's journey from the minute he left Goa Kingdom all the way until he was captured by Blackbeard. There is a lot of juicy details there. We got to learn a lot more about Ace's character. We saw the insights of how the Whitebeard crew actually works, and we even had a really nice fight where Ace actually teamed up with Blackbeard to take down a rival pirate crew. So yeah, I'm excited for the Zoro light novel. I want to see how Oda is going to go about it. But the hard thing with Zoro's light novel is that he's kind of trapped in the East Blue. Zoro doesn't go to the New World. You know, Zoro isn't a part of Yonko crew. Zoro is solely a bounty hunter. So I do wonder how much Oda can actually expand upon that lore. Maybe we'll learn a little bit more about Zoro's family. Maybe we'll learn more about the Shimotsukis in general. Or maybe we'll learn about a bunch of bounty hunters that are giving Zoro a really rough time. I am really excited, so hopefully that does turn out to be pretty good. And hopefully we do get some English translations, because let me tell you, the Ace light novels took a long time to get their English counterparts. So yeah, if you're a Zoro fan, there's going to be a lot to look forward to next week. And like I said, Sanji also has a mini data page as well, but it's not going to be as grand as Zoro's, unfortunately. But then again, Sanji does have a whole arc that revolves around his backstory. So, you know, if I had to weigh between Zoro and Sanji getting a light novel, I think Zoro definitely deserves it here. So now, another thing about this color spread that really stood out to me also has to do with Zoro and Sanji. So this isn't the first color spread where both of those characters have worn knight armor. It happened back in chapter 390 and again in, I think, chapter 650-ish. And the cool thing about those chapters is that in both of those, they each have shields. Sanji's shield has a picture of a horse, and Zoro's shield has a picture of a bird. Some people are running with this theory and saying that maybe Zoro will fight Marcus Mars because of this quote foreshadowing. I'm not too sure yet, but hey, for Sanji, he is fighting a horse right now, so maybe there is some validity to that. And another thing to kind of back up that Venus and Mars will be Zoro and Sanji opponents is that back in One Piece Volume 6 Party Story, which is a spin-off manga that Oda himself wrote back in the day, we actually had new versions of Zoro and Sanji where Zoro is a Venusian swordsman of darkness and Sanji is a Martian martial artist of darkness, which, if you don't know what a Martian and Venusian is, it's someone who comes from Venus and someone who comes from Mars. So yeah, there very well could be something here. Maybe Oda has been foreshadowing these Straw Hat matchups for quite some time now. Of course, I don't think Sanji is going to be Venus's final opponent. I do still think that will go to Zoro, and these matchups right now are just temporary, right? Because as it stands right now, our job on Egghead Island is not to defeat the Gorosei, it's simply to leave. So Sanji fighting Venus in this chapter, it's just a little clash in my opinion, but it's a good clash. I'm not trying to undersell it. It's a good clash. I am really excited to talk about it. But yeah, the other thing about this color spread that did stand out to me is Frankie. So we have Frankie and Jinbei as the rooks of the chessboard. What's interesting though, is that while Jinbei is simply chilling in a castle, Frankie is the castle, which, you know, kind of makes sense because he is a robot at the end of the day. But you do have to remember that Frankie is the one straw hat out of the bunch who has a really strange bounty poster. You know, coming into Egghead Island, when Frankie got his new bounty, instead of his bounty poster being a picture of him, it was actually a picture of the Thousand Sunny. Why? What could Oda possibly be foreshadowing with this? Is Frankie going to have another bodily transformation? I have no clue. But this could be a hint at that. The last thing I do want to make note of about this color spread is the caption that Oda wrote on the top left. It says that the king is a fighting piece too. And if you've played chess before, you know that that is absolute BS. The king is one of the worst pieces on the entire board, in my opinion. So it's cool seeing Oda break the norm, and it's also nice seeing that Luffy is the piece that is breaking that too. So I know I'm throwing pennies into the abyss when I wish this, but I really hope that come next color spread, we get this exact same image, but instead of the Straw Hats, we actually get either the red-haired pirates, the Blackbeard pirates, or maybe even Emu and the Holy Knights. I think that'd be really sick, just seeing how the other factions put their pieces together and see, you know, who's the pawn, who's the knight, you know, who's the rook, who's the king. I think that'd be pretty awesome. But yeah, that is a little bit of a fan canon right there. So now on to the actual chapter. We got page 1 right here. Not the dinosaur page 1, but page 1 of the chapter. So to jump right into it, we actually get to see what Mars saw last chapter. It turns out that the bubbling noise he heard actually came from Vegapunk's giant brain in a cylinder. So this is an option that a lot of people have talked about last week, and it's an option I also enjoyed. My only problem with it was that it wouldn't be able to properly defend the broadcast if this was indeed the real Hyson Denden Mushi. Come to find out though, this isn't the real Denden Mushi, and Mars got Vegapunked. Yes, so Mars, he's like, hey Vegapunk, your luck is up, it's over now, what is death? Who cares, I'm gonna step on this snail. So he steps on it, and we come to find out that it is a snail cosplaying as the broadcast signal, which I thought was absolutely hilarious, because when you really think about it, Vegapunk didn't have to dress up the snail. He could have simply made a hologram, right? Like, Vegapunk has so many holograms on this island. I kind of thought that's what this was going to be, but no, it's just the snail that's cosplaying. So yeah, Mars gets really upset. He storms out of here, and that is when Vegapunk starts giving the intro to his message. But before that though, you know, like I said, Mars does drop a couple of philosophical lines here. He looks at the brain and he's like, hey, what is death? You know, Vegapunk, where are your thoughts now? And you know what? If this were to come from any other character in One Piece, I'd probably just brush it off. I'm like, yeah, it's a good one-liner, you know, I'll give you that one. But no, this is coming from Marcus Mars, a member of the Gorosei, somebody who knows all about the world's secrets. Marcus Mars, a character that a lot of people think might be immortal and from the Void Century. So it's like, hey, what is death? You know, like I stopped for a second and I was like, I don't know, man. And yeah, it makes a lot of sense as to why he'd ask that in this situation, right? Because Vegapunk, his body got torn apart. Kizaru shot him, Saturn stabbed him, the guy's heartbeat has flatlined, but here's his brain. You know, here's the Nomi Nomi no Mi at work. All the satellites are still alive. Punk Records is still functioning. So it really does beg the question of, when do you die? So after Mars storms out of Punk Records, he hops back in the Discord call and he's talking with the rest of the Gorosei. And the Gorosei are kind of blasting him. They're like, Mars, what are you doing? You know, the broadcast is still going on. And he's like, dude, Vegapunk got us, right? Currently, there is no way to stop this. He's going to finish what Clover started at Ohara. And that is when we get a nice shot of all of the Gorosei, and they're all just looking up like this. And it's so funny because you know deep down, these guys are terrified, right? Like, imagine this. Throughout all of Egghead Island, we did not get to see Emu whatsoever. Well, we did see Emu in the flashback and the Lucia, but ever since the broadcast was announced, Imu has not reacted. I guarantee you, Imu is fuming in their room, dude. I wouldn't be surprised if the next time we see the flower room, all the flowers are dead. They must be pissed that this is happening. And the minute the Gorosei go back home, I guarantee you, Imu's just gonna be slapping these guys silly. Yeah, no, they're about to catch a massive L. But before we get to the message and the rest of the Gorosei shenanigans, we have to talk about the people around the world. So the first group we actually get to see in this chapter is Syrup Village. We get to see Kaya, Mary, Tamanegi, Paimon, or Paimon. I always call him Paimon. I blame Genshin Impact for that one. And then we have another kid who I think is named Carrot as well. In English, it's carrot, onion, and pepper. But in Japanese, I have no clue, to be honest. The English dub really messed me up on those guys. But yeah, they're all talking about Dr. Vegapunk. And then we kind of cut over and we see Torino Kingdom. We see Karakuri Island. And we even see a couple of places we don't know anything about. And they're all just hyping up Vegapunk. And it just goes to show how respected Vegapunk is around the world. They know him as a genius, as the world's leading scientist. And I feel like the reason why Oda is giving us these shots and these dialogue boxes is because he wants to show that everyone will outright believe Vegapunk no matter what, right? They have no reason to doubt him, right? Like imagine if instead of Vegapunk, you put Bellamy the hyena in front of this broadcast signal, nobody would believe him, right? Bellamy the hyena. Guys, the world is gonna sink into the sea. Who's this bozo? 150 million berries? Ah, he's a pirate. Forget about him. People would not care. They would disregard him because of his reputation. And that is why it is so important that the person delivering this message is none other than Dr. Vegapunk, a household name, a name that is glorified around the world. And yeah, I love it. I love it. So after we see Kaya and the boys, the next group we see are the Marines. And boy, these Marines. Yeah. The world government is messed up because if you look at the Marines, they're actually transcribing what Vegapunk is saying. What do they say? What do they say? The Marine says the broadcast will be starting shortly, and he even has a little pen and paper ready to go. Yeah. Whatever Vegapunk is writing down, it's gonna go down in the history books, right? The world government can't simply cut the connections off. They can't simply Lelucia the island and hope people just forget about it. No. This is going down, and everyone is gonna find out the truth. After we see the Marines, the next place we go to is Twin Cape, and we actually see Laboon and Crocus. And yes, I love seeing Laboon, right? Laboon, good feels, excited for Brook to meet him again. I'm adding this in while I'm editing the video, but imagine Laboon is celebrating the news that the world is sinking. I don't know why. I just thought about that. Vegapunk is like, hey guys, the world's gonna sink into the ocean. And the Laboon's like, ha. The world will soon be mine. My family will rule again. But Crocus, though, the inclusion of Crocus, in my opinion, is so fascinating because we have to remember that he was actually a part of the Roger Pirates. He knows about the Void Century. He knows about the One Piece. And it's like, yo, I wonder what kind of insight he's going to add to Vegapunk's message. Hell, I wonder what all of the former Roger Pirates have to add to this message. Because it throws me back to Sabaody, where Robin asked Rayleigh if he knew about O'Hara and their research in the Void Century. And Rayleigh said they did. But they came to a certain answer. And that once the Straw Hats learn everything, they may come to a different conclusion than they did. So it really makes me wonder, what happened back then? And then, even tying back to Vegapunk in this chapter, he says, hey, whoever kills me or whoever ends up doing the deed, do not automatically assume that they are evil, regardless of who they may seem to be. I do not intend to discuss what is right or wrong. I do not know nearly enough about him in any case. And I'm like, yo, there's a chance. There's a chance that the world government isn't 100% wrong. Because you have to take into context that Vegapunk knows that the only person who'd really come after him is the world government, right? Like, the world government are the only ones who would assassinate him because of this. He knows that. But even then, he's saying that even if he dies, don't assume that they're just automatically evil. We just don't know enough about him. And I'm assuming he's referring to Imu in this scenario. And I just don't know, man. I just really don't know. I'm so excited about the Void Century, and I have been a huge proprietor when it comes to the theory that Imu might actually be a relatable villain to some extent. Because let's just stop for a second and assume that is the case. That would perfectly explain why the Roger Pirates disbanded after finding the One Piece and didn't immediately go after the world government despite knowing what transpired in the past. It explains why Vegapunk says, hey, don't assume whoever killed me is in the wrong. We just don't know enough about them. And then even going back to the Void Century, Imu managed to gather 19 other countries alongside him to take down the Ancient Kingdom. Something went down there. Imu had the majority on his side when it came to the Ancient Kingdom War. There's a lot of things at play here, and even just tying back to Egghead Island 2, when Shaka kind of revealed a little bit of information to Frankie, Sanji, Robin, Nami, and Usopp, Frankie said that that's a really romantic story, right? Like, Usopp was kind of shocked by it, Sanji was shocked by it, people were all just perturbed by the information that Shaka dropped. So there is a chance that the Void Century might not be as black and white as it may seem. A random analogy I kind of want to bring into this is Naruto, right? We had the first Hokage and Madara. They were good friends, they came to world peace, but eventually things went awry, and then over the years, Madara became this ultimate evil. That's kind of how I imagine Imu in a way. I think he started with really good intentions, but over time, he maybe got corrupted. Or who knows, maybe he still is a good guy. I have no clue. I have no clue. But yeah, this is serving as a lot of Void Century hype in my opinion. But yeah, back to the chapter though. The first Straw Hat we cut back to is Sanji. Sanji has finally arrived at the giant ship. But he sees an abhorrent scene going down. Bonnie and Frankie are about to be attacked by a giant bald man. So Sanji jumps into battle, and holy crap, does Sanji look good here. Yeah, so Sanji jumps in between Venus and Bonnie. He pretty much hops off of Venus's blade and then hits him with a kick to the chin. And boy, oh boy, is that an awesome panel or what? Yeah, man, Sanji looks good here. And this is base Sanji, if that's what you want to call him, right? Because he doesn't have his eyebrows in Jerma mode. His leg isn't some blazing blue inferno here. No. This is just Sanji coming in, man. And plus Sanji, he's holding Vegapunk. Yeah, he's holding Vegapunk while he's doing this, so it makes it even more BA. But he does have a little bit of flame on his foot. We don't know if it's blue flames, we don't know if it's red flames, but either way, his entire leg isn't engulfed. This is like the smallest flame I've ever seen Sanji have on his foot before, and it managed to draw blood from Venus, and it's really impressive. I always feel the need to throw it out there though, but Venus and even all the Gorosei, despite them, you know, coughing up blood, losing limbs, looking horrible, they still have not taken any significant damage because they're just going to regenerate at the end of the day. Until we find a meaningful way to hurt them, all this damage is kind of fluff. But then again, it is a nice hype tool for the characters that hit them. I will stand by that. Even though these characters can regenerate, I doubt they really want to get hit. Saturn, it makes sense why he would take Bonnie's stab because that's like a baby wound, right? That's like a little prick on your chest. But for Sanji, dude, you're looking at the stars at that point, right? You know, Kuma, dude, the guy just slapped you through 50 buildings. You know, like at some point, maybe you should dodge, right? Maybe if you could have dodged, maybe you should have dodged. You know what I mean? Like if I was an infinitely regenerating monster like Majin Buu, let me tell you, man, I wouldn't let just anybody touch me. No, dude, yeah, I wouldn't want anybody to just touch me like this. But yeah, these Gorosei, they're kind of being manhandled right now. And I know some people are saying that the Gorosei are not trying right here. This isn't them at full power. And I like to believe that too, because I want the villains to look good. You know, I'm a villain stan. Catch me in any single series, Naruto, Bleach, you can throw in some isekai in there. I always root for the bad guys because I want them to look cool before they lose. So yeah, maybe we can cope and say that the Gorosei are not trying, but it's hard to argue for that considering the circumstances. They're fighting a Yonko crew. Vegapunk is doxing the world government and the end of the world. Imu is ready to beat you up when you get back home. You know what I mean? Like, if there was a time to go all out, it would be now, brother. It would be right now. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. You know, like at the end of the day, power scaling, always a little bit iffy, but you gotta admit, it's a really fun conversation to have as long as nobody takes it too seriously. But yeah, right now, I stand by it. Sanji is looking pretty solid. But Venus, like I said, takes 0 damage, so he ends up instantly regenerating. He turns into his Bakotsu form, and he actually ends up biting Sanji. But that is when the heroes of the chapter step in. Oimo and Kashi come into play, and they say, "What's that?" And they instantly start holding down Venus. It's so crazy, man. I love the transition from, "What is that skeleton horse?" to, "Hey, let's go get him." You know what I mean? Like, it's just so instantaneous. It brought a little smile to my face. But yeah, Oimo and Kashi managed to pin down Venus so hard that Venus ends up coughing up Sanji. You know, Venus is like, you know, like, it's like they're giving him the Heimlich maneuver. And man, it's great. I love it when the giants get feats like this, right? Dorian Broggie cutting out Jupiter's head, Dorian Broggie sun shielding Warkody. Oh man, Oimo and Kashi holding down Venus. Dude, I eat this up like it's bread and butter on a Friday morning. Yeah, the reason why I love these giant feats is because, in a joking way, it makes Polly, the Frankie family, the Shipwrights of Water 7, Mr. 3, it makes all of those guys seem so much cooler than they actually are. Like, damn, if Oimo and Kashi can do this to Venus, if they can pin him down, woo! Imagine what Polly and some rope could do, bro. I don't know. And then, to top things all off, the next person that comes in to fight Venus is Bonnie. She goes into her distorted future, turns into a giant, and then she seemingly crushes Venus with her foot. We don't actually see the impact of it. We don't see her actually slam it down, but I think there's a good chance that it's going to land. Like I said, Venus, 0 damage. 0 damage. But if I was immortal, I wouldn't let somebody step on me. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, right? You know, there are guys out there that pay really good money for feet. Maybe Venus is just one of those guys. But yeah, Venus is, he's kind of being dealt with ease right now. And it does make me wonder if he will show out next chapter. I hope he does, right? I hope Venus does do something good next chapter. Because let me tell you, man, when this guy came onto the battlefront, he looked fire, bro. He was darkened out. He had the sash. You know, the glasses were white. The body's all black. Oh my God, he looked good. And then here he is, man. Here he is, about to be stomped on by a 12-year-old and being pinned down by Oimo and Kashi. Man, what a world we live in. Yeah. It's pretty funny. So pushing the jokes aside for a second, Bonnie being able to tap into a distorted future where she turns into a giant just makes a lot of sense. Because we've seen her do this before with a Buccaneer future. We've seen her tap into a Sun God Nika future. So a giant future is pretty par for the course in my opinion. What's cool about this is that it confirms that she can tap into futures that she has no business in being in. And the reason why I'm going out of my way to say this is because going back to when Bonnie was trying to tap into her Sun God Nika future, but she couldn't against Saturn, there were a handful of people who were actually a little bit confused on how this power actually works. They thought the reason why Bonnie couldn't become Sun God Nika is because Sun God Nika really exists. But that's not the case. Bonnie couldn't tap into Sun God Nika because she didn't believe that he existed anymore. But now that Bonnie has found out that Luffy is the real Sun God Nika, she should be able to tap into that future once more. So I wouldn't be surprised if this fight continues, we see her whip out some Gear 5th or Gear 3rd abilities. Personally, I would really love to see Bonnie pull off a Gomu Gomu no Gatling, or a Dawn Gatling as Luffy calls it now. Because that is the ability that Luffy showed Bonnie, right? Luffy said, "Hey, Bonnie, let me show you how it's done." And then he hits Saturn with one of those. So it would be cool if Bonnie says, "Huh, is this how he did it?" And then she starts going down on Venus. I think that'd be pretty sick. But yeah, Bonnie becoming a giant, awesome. And the pose that she has right now, if you look at it from the side, she does do the Sun God Nika pose, which is pretty cool too, right? You know, Sun God Nika, it's still fresh on the brain. So while this fight was going on, Vegapunk was still talking in the background, and it's kind of hard talking about the chapter chronologically because this happens, that happens, this happens, that happens. Like we bounce around so much, so forgive me if this is hard to follow. But during all of this, Vegapunk actually says that he has committed 2 grave sins. We actually don't know what those sins are in this chapter, but if I had to take a guess as to what it is, I think the first one would be the death of Kuma, right? Vegapunk followed the world government orders, and he had to put down a really good guy. That right there could be sin number 1. As far as sin number 2, I feel like that one is a lot more obvious, and that is the creation of nuclear energy, or should I say the mother flame, right? If Vegapunk never created the mother flame, then the world government wouldn't have the power to destroy islands and raise water levels around the world. I think that would be considered a grave sin. So yeah, those are my two guesses on that. I would love to hear what you guys have to say about it. What do you think Vegapunk's two grave sins are? I've heard some people saying that it could be the creation of the Seraphim, but I would argue against that because Vegapunk actually really cares for the Seraphim. He views them as kids, and a lot of the satellites really love them as well. So I don't think it's the creation of them, but I guess if there was something to frown about when it comes to the Seraphim, it would be the experimentation to get to them in the first place, because it did require them capturing Albert and locking him up as a kid. So that might be a grave sin, but I can't imagine Vegapunk would somehow tie in King into the story. But who knows? Maybe I'm wrong there. You know, maybe he's like, hey, my grave sin is what I did to you, King. King, if you're watching, I'm sorry. So at the very start of this video, I mentioned that this is my second time recording this video, and I never really expanded on that. I kind of just said that, and then I grumpily started the video. I was like, oh guys, welcome in chapter 1113. But yeah, to give some context, I recorded, I think 30 minutes of this. I was almost done, and then I realized that my mic was muted the entire time. Oh, that's painful, dude. So yeah, 30 minutes down the drain, not a big deal at the end of the day, but it does suck, like, regurgitating everything I just said. It's like, oh, what did I talk about here? Venus, I think is his name. What's up here? Is that Dr. Shenanigans? I don't know. But yeah, anyways, back to the chapter now. We get more reactions from around the world, and that's because Vegapunk says that this message is supposed to go out once his heart stops beating. And we do get some pretty cool people here. We see Duval from Saboti, which is a character we haven't seen in quite some time, and he's like, hey, his heart stopped beating. Weren't the Straw Hats with them? What's going on here? We see Big News Morgans, and he's pretty upset, and he's like, hey, with this broadcast going out, it's gonna be the death of the newspaper industry. And then we see Caesar, and that man is crying. And I love all of these reactions, because while they're all expressing varying degrees of shock, it's all for different reasons, right? Duval is like, wait, why did the Straw Hats kill him? Caesar's like, wait, what am I gonna do now? Like, who am I gonna beat? And then Big News Morgans is just worried about his money. And these are all things I want to talk about. So Duval thinking that the Straw Hats killed him, I think is reasonable, right? You read the newspaper, oh, the Straw Hats are holding him hostage. Oh, Vegapunk's dead. Well, you know, it doesn't take a scientist to put two and two together, especially if you don't know the Straw Hats. For Duval, for Leo, and for the Straw Hat Grand Fleet, I'm sure they know that the Straw Hats didn't do anything bad at the end of the day. Or maybe if they killed Vegapunk, maybe Vegapunk's a bad guy and they're gonna let the Straw Hats get away with it. I'm not too sure. But yeah, with that being the narrative though, I do wonder if there will be some repercussions against the Straw Hats in the future, right? Because while the Straw Hat Grand Fleet would believe Luffy, other countries won't, right? Like Karakuri Island, would they say, oh, the Straw Hats did it? If Luffy goes shopping, are they gonna say, hey, it's the guy that killed Vegapunk? I do wonder if somebody will clear the water. You know, maybe Vegapunk will say, hey, Luffy didn't do it. Or maybe Big News Morgans sweeps in and he's like, hey, the government killed him, guys. It's not the Straw Hats. Yeah, so I'm curious to see how the Straw Hats are going to be portrayed around the world. As far as Caesar goes, this is one I'm kind of curious about too, because Vegapunk was Caesar's lifelong goal. Even Judge and even Queen, I would say, they all wanted to one-up Vegapunk. They wanted to show Vegapunk that they are the geniuses, not him. But now that Vegapunk isn't here, where are they going to divert that anger towards, right? Like, are they going to go after the world government? Are they going to go after the Straw Hats? So I know this isn't exactly a great one-to-one comparison, but Caesar right now kind of reminds me of Douglas Bullet, but without the muscle and conqueror's hockey. Because Douglas Bullet, his whole life goal was one-upping Roger. He wanted to surpass Roger one day. But while he was in Impel Down, Roger died, so he lost his goal. So what did Douglas Bullet do now? Well, he turned his anger towards the entire world. So I do wonder if the same will happen to Neo Mads. Now that Vegapunk is gone, will they turn their anger towards the world government? I don't know. But I think it would be really cool if Neo Mads step in to fight Saturn, right? Science versus science, you know, let's go out and avenge Dr. Vegapunk and take that Spider-Man down. I think that'd be really sick. But yeah, now on to Big News Morgans. And like I said, the reason why he is in shock and awe is because of this broadcast. It's so popular, everybody's listening in. Nobody's gonna buy newspapers anymore if this is the meta. Of course, I'm not too worried about Big News Morgans and its economic problems, but hey, maybe this event will spur Morgans into using Heisen Denden Mushis in the future. I could see that happening, but the main reason why Morgans doesn't use Denden Mushis right now is probably because he is an albatross. So him controlling birds is a lot easier than him controlling snails. But that's just headcanon, right? We don't exactly know. I'm sure Morgans could make a Denden Mushi work, but since he is a bird guy himself, he probably just wants to use birds in general. A cool idea that Morgans could pull off if he had the technology would be turning his birds into drones. You know how drones nowadays can, you know, fly around and they can project like a giant message in the sky? Maybe that's what Morgans is gonna do one day, right? He's like, well, if print media is going out, we're gonna switch over to broadcasting. I feel like that'd be the next logical step in his business model, but who knows? Maybe instead he's gonna double down on print media. Damn, dude, I cannot pull Fat Majin Buu on Dokkan Battle. Dang it. Yeah, I got some bad luck when it comes to gacha games, man. 400 Dragon Stones down the drain. Sorry if I'm getting off topic a lot in this video. It is 4 a.m. while I'm recording this. Usually, I'm recording this video at 11 a.m., 12 p.m. But no, the chapter came out late today, guys. So here I am. Just got home from a nice long shift, took a shower, ate some food, and here we are. We're still on the grind, guys. Yeah, okay, that's like embarrassing. So we go on to the next battlefront and we see that Saturn has finally arrived at the Labo phase. Saturn, I think it's hilarious. While he's clawing his way up here, he's like, damn you, Vegapunk. And then Robin starts having these Ohara flashbacks, which is really sad, you know, because she recognizes Saturn's voice from the Denden Mushi back in the past. So Robin starts freaking out a little bit. Nami takes note of this and she's like, guys, protect Robin. And then in an amazing page spread, I love this one, but you see all of the Straw Hats take action. You have Nami and Zeus just coming in, blocking one of Saturn's leg. And also, I love that Zeus has been so well integrated into the crew. Like, it just feels natural having him around. I kind of wish Zeus had more dialogue, if anything. Chopper comes in on the side. He also uses guard point and blocks one of Saturn's leg, which is really impressive, by the way. I do not want to undersell Chopper here whatsoever, but Saturn's claw damaged Kuma. Electricity was flying out when he hit Kuma with it. And then Vegapunk, bro, he killed Vegapunk with this, right? Well, not kill him. It's like 50% damage. Kizaru did the rest. But dude, that claw on Vegapunk punctured him. You know what I mean? So Chopper using guard point and that being enough to bounce Saturn's leg off of him, pretty insane. And then we can't forget about our guy Brook, because Brook comes in here and actually cuts off one of Saturn's legs. Bro, come on, man. The Straw Hats are looking good. Yeah. The one thing we're missing from Brook that would make the scene 1,000 times more BA would be when Brook cuts Saturn's leg. If he says, Saturn, you're 100 years too young to be coming after us. That would be sick. I don't know. It would be like the Big Mom line where he calls Big Mom young lady. Yeah, it would be cool. That page is some really good stuff. The one thing I hope we get next week is Robin showing out too. I know right now Robin is going through the emotions, but it would be nice if Robin managed to muster up the courage and land a nice solid blow against the Gorosei, because she deserves it, right? The Gorosei destroyed her hometown, her family, and everything. I think she deserves a really nice blow on him. A dream of mine even would be if Robin used her demonio form here and showed Saturn what a real demonic spider looks like. I think that'd be pretty solid, right? Imagine Robin going into demonio form and just snapping off all of his legs one by one. Oh, that would be great. That would be great. So a funny thing to keep in mind here is that this epic page is devoid of anyone from the monster trio. If Saturn can't land a significant blow right here against these guys, oh man, he's cooked. He is cooked. the minute Zoro or Jinbei show up. Yeah, dude, Zoro? If Brook can cut off one leg, I'm gonna say it right here. You know, Zoro's probably gonna cut off all 9 of his legs, or all 8 of his legs, sorry. I was thinking about 9 sword style. But yeah, Zoro, come in, just pum, 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 pum. Saturn, no legs. Jinbei, Fishman karate, knock him off the cliff. I can see that happening, as silly as that sounds. But yeah, man, so far these Gorosei have collected zero W's. It's actually a little bit embarrassing. I feel bad for them, if anything. Yeah, I feel a little bit bad for these guys. Like, they didn't stop the broadcast. They haven't beaten any Straw Hats. They killed Vegapunk, but technically Vegapunk's still alive as a giant brain, and the satellites are still around the island. Yeah, I don't know. They're not exactly looking super great right now, and they should be locked in. Like I said, this is a battle that they really cannot afford to lose, and this is how they're performing. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe this is like Bleach, right? They have the Gente Kaijo, where they're not allowed to unleash their full power in the human realm, but I have no clue. So one thing that I thought was kind of interesting when Saturn showed up here was his dialogue towards Robin. He looked at Robin and he said, "Oh, Nico Robin, the one insect that slipped through Akainu's fingers. That fool." And I'm just sitting here and I'm like, I don't know, man. Are you really blaming Akainu for that? I mean, what about Kuzan? Aokiji, brother, Aokiji created an ice pathway so that Robin could escape. Cypherpole led the expedition to destroy Ohara. And then, to top it all off, outside of Akainu and Aokiji, there were 3 other vice admirals present. Why did Akainu get all the blame? If anything, Akainu earned extra credit because he killed civilians. You know, he destroyed the ship that was trying to leave. Like, I don't know if I'd blame Akainu for that one, to be honest. But then again, of course, they didn't know that Kuzan helped Robin back in the past, so maybe they thought that Akainu destroyed the ship, but he wasn't able to destroy all the survivors on it. I'm not too sure. I don't know what their headcanon is of that event, but yeah, they're blaming Akainu for that, and I don't think he's gonna take that too well. I mean, the Gorosei and Akainu already have beef. Apparently, according to the Sandman and a lot of native Japanese speakers, but when Akainu showed up to Maruni's Raw and talked to the Gorosei, he was very disrespectful. He did not like the elders, and that was simply because Doflamingo changed a newspaper story. Now imagine if they blame him for Nico Robin. Yeah, I think he's gonna be pissed. Yeah. I don't think any Marines are gonna be having what the Gorosei is serving. Which I'll get back to that when we get to the end of the chapter 2. Next part I want to touch on is the fact that they are still looking for the Denden Mushi. So while the Gorosei haven't caught any W's yet, it's not too late for a comeback in the 4th quarter. They could still end the broadcast before Vegapunk reveals too much information. So after we see the Saturn clash, we see Mars and York again. York is like, hey, I gotta think about where this Denden Mushi is, right? It's gotta be here somewhere. And then we have Mars, who's kind of going on the nuclear route. He's kind of like, hey guys, how would you feel if I just destroyed the entire island, you know? How would you guys feel if I just destroyed the Labo phase? That would get rid of all of our problems. But Warkody and Saturn and the rest of the boys kind of talk some sense into him, and they're like, hey, if he were to destroy the Labo phase, not only would they lose all the Marines nearby, but they lose the Seraphims, they lose the Mother Flame, and there's no guarantee that the broadcast would even be stopped. Like, imagine if Dragon actually had the Heisen Denden Mushi the entire time. They would just look like fools destroying this island, when they could be utilizing all the technology here after the battle is over. So yeah, they don't end up destroying it, and that is when Vegapunk, you know, right away, like right after they're done having their little conversation, Vegapunk drops the info, and he starts with the conclusion, which I think is really smart, right? Because imagine the Gorosei come in and they stop the broadcast halfway. Then we wouldn't get the finale that Vegapunk was building up to the entire time. So starting with the conclusion, A1 Vegapunk, A1. This is what I expect from the world's smartest man. So Vegapunk says, hey guys, this might sound a little bit crazy, but hear me out. In the very near future, our world will sink into the ocean. And after he says this, we get a hilarious panel where fodder Marines are looking up at Vegapunk's message and they're like, wait, what? Underwater? And it's like, yeah. This news will affect the entire world. Civilians, revolutionaries, pirates, Marines even. So many people are going to be up in arms if Vegapunk somehow ties the world sinking to the world government. I feel like if you're a regular Marine, there'd be no reason to fight for the world government after they drop this information. Like, yeah, the world government, sure, they have slaves. Yeah, they do bad things. Yeah, they overtax many countries into poverty. But they are kind of the order of the world, you know? It's this overarching group that's been at the top for 900 years. We have to follow them. They have that sense of duty to them. But if they come to find out that the government is willing to throw the world into the ocean, then I don't know. Like, how can you defend that, right? Yeah, slavery, sure, you know, like, maybe they only take a couple of people a year, you know, they try to cope with it, right? But you can't really cope with the end of the world. There's just no way. There's no way about it. And the thing is, too, is that if the world sinks, I don't even think they would try to save the Marines either. Because from what we know of so far, Marines aren't exactly welcomed in the Holy Land unless it's a special event like the Reverie, or unless there's a special Marine coming up like a Kainu, right? There's not a Marine base atop the Red Line. So if the world does, you know, sink into the ocean, or if the ocean waters start rising, I really do think they would just let the Marines fend for themselves. And I don't think any Marine would be having that, right? A Kainu wouldn't have that. Garp wouldn't have that, but Garp is also captured by Blackbeard. I don't think many admirals would even stand for this, right? Like, Kizaru must feel like a fool right now. Kizaru killed the one guy who wanted to out this plan. Now that Kizaru is learning that the world government he's working for is evil, what are they gonna do? Right? Yeah, I'm so curious, man. I am so curious. I wouldn't be shocked if the Marines and even the revolutionaries come hand in hand. And I know that sounds ridiculous at first, but hey, it could happen since Dragon was once a part of the Marines. Maybe as a former Marine, he's like, hey guys, let me help you. You know, like, hey guys, how about you join our cause and take down the world government? You know what I mean? Oh man, I'm so excited. Vegapunk really is thrusting the world into the end game. At this point, it really does feel like Emu and the world government are the Thanos of One Piece. They're just this great penultimate evil that everyone has to come together for just to take down. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if Shanks, Buggy, Luffy, Blackbeard. Blackbeard is kind of like a hard one to really tell what he's going to do in the future, but I wouldn't be shocked if a lot of people just held hands and fought Emu. And the reason I almost threw Blackbeard into the mix is because Blackbeard wants to be king of the world. It's hard to be king of the world if there's no world to be king of. Same with Luffy. You can't be king of the pirates if there's no islands, or if there's no pirates out there, or if the One Piece gets buried. You just can't do it. You just can't. So I really do think that this will be the great uniter in a sense. So now, with this being the case, I am really excited to see what the future of One Piece is going to look like. I want to see how people try to survive. Do we hop on Water 7? Do we hop on Thriller Bark? Does everybody buy a pirate ship? Do we just start setting sail on boats? Do we try to climb the Red Line? I don't know. I really don't. And yeah, that is where I'm going to end the video. Sorry if it's a little bit of a cliffhanger, but I do have another video that should be out around the same time this video comes out, where I go a little bit more in depth on the Great Flood. So yeah, if you want to check that out, I will be linking it down as a pinned comment right when it goes live. I'm not exactly too sure when the editing is going to be done, so please bear with me. But yeah, hey, thank you guys so much for stopping by and checking out this video. I really freaking appreciate it. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next chapter. Sai, signing out.